covered bridge, didn't it? Or did it?
It did. It washed it away.
And then they built another bridge back
Built
there.
another one and then finally tore it down and built this one.
The 40 flood about got it, I guess, and then they well, it got the other end of it on the north end of town. We're sitting right now in Yadkin County, aren't we?
Yeah.
We just
There you in Yadkin.
just right on the edge of Jonesville.
Well, you're about a mile from the river right now.
Yeah.
And the river's a line.
Yeah. Just south of the Yadkin River.
Yeah, and we're east of Jonesville.
When did you get married?
Gosh, I don't remember.
Or do you mind telling me?
No, I tell you, it was in the 1920s,
Uh-huh.
and I think it was 1924, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
Well, what was your wife's name? Her maiden name?
Cheek from up Lomax.
Uh-huh.
She was down here working in Chatham Manufacturing Company's plant in the finishing department, and
Yeah.
boarded with her sister, which lived across the street and just down below us.
Uh-huh.
So I was working down there too, so that's the way we met.
Well, what was her given name?
Cheek.
No, I mean her first
Nora.
name. Nora.
Yeah.
I'm having this, for the benefit
Yeah.
of the tape and all
Nora.
that. Well, did you have any children?
We had 2 children.
Any grandchildren?
We've got, I can't count. No, we've got about 5 grandchildren,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know how many great-grandchildren. 2 or 3 of those.
We're going to get back a little bit to the river right now, if it's all right.
Yeah.
You may not know it, but you've got the reputation of being the oldest riverman around.
Well, we started way back right after my wife and myself was married.
Yeah.
I built a old-fashioned river boat, they call it, flat bottom.
Yeah.
And we went up to Ferguson.
Uh-huh.
That's the point that the Yadkin finally says it's got down off the mountain.
Yeah.
And we carried our camping gear along with us and some food.
Uh-huh.
And paddled all the way down to Elkin and camped as we come along.
How did you get up there? Somebody hauled you up in a...
So I hauled us up there in a pickup.
Yeah. And just dropped you off, and
Yeah.
they came on back, and y'all back. It take you a couple, 3 days to come down, wouldn't it, or 5 days, or?
I think we spent 3 nights on the river.
Yeah. You one of them lucky rivermen that's got a wife that loves to do the same thing he loves to do.
I don't know if she liked to do it or not, but she came along. But that was the end of her river experience. I don't know why, but
Oh, she didn't care too much
she
for
didn't
it
go
now?
about it anymore.
Well, now, you've stayed paddling that river a long number of years, so...
Well, I haven't officially quit yet.
Well, that's what it be. You're still paddling, but you've paddled that river a long time.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, you're the man that brought the first foal boat in this country.
That's right.
It's made down in Charleston, South
Yeah.
Carolina. A lot of people still don't know what that boat is, but I guess we enlightened them a little bit about 1.5 years ago.
You certainly told him what it was.
But,
yeah, I was the first full boater up this way.
Yeah.
And Mr. Kistner, the man that made the boats, came up here with us and
Yeah.
made a trip with us one time. He's one of the nicest people I ever saw. And I have been to his plant there in South Carolina. But he's dead now.
Yeah, I guess if it hadn't been for you, I doubt if I'd have been an owner of one of them, because through your influence of a friend of ours, mine and yours both, Bill Blackburn, he's the one that put me onto the boat, and he got an idea from you, so I'd like to take time to just say thank you very much.
Well, here, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Well, it's the only reasonable type of single person boat that you can get a hold of, that you can do anything in the world with. I had it up at Niagara Falls, in the river down below the falls. I've had it in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
I've had it in the Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
And half of the rivers around this area.
You've also been down in that big Okefenokee swamp too, haven't you?
And I never got my feet wet yet.
You paddled that old Okefenokee swamp too,
Yeah, I've
haven't
been
you?
in there.
Yeah.
But it's been a very enlightening experience.
Mhm.
Because you see things at that level that you don't see riding around over the country in an automobile.
Right. And by paddling too, you really see the creatures, the birds, the animals, and everything out there. If you had a motor, you'd scare them away, probably.
Well, sure, and then you'd be going fast, you wouldn't pay attention to them anyway.
Yeah.
I never forget this thing, coming down North Wilkesboro one day by myself, and I got down nearly to the Big Bend, you know, at Rhonda?
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
And I saw an old man and a young boy in a flat-bottom riverboat paddling down the river, real slowly, and he had a gun laying across his lap, shotgun. So I came on down and got beside him, and I'd been seeing a lot of ducks up the river. The ducks had hatched and the little ones were running on their mother's wings when I'd go by. So I come on down by him, I saw the gun, I said, "You having any luck?" He said, "No," I said, "we're just shooting some squirrels." I said, "Well, I saw one just fly away just a minute ago up the river." He laid his gun back down.
He's actually been shooting ducks, hasn't he?
Shooting ducks. And them with little ones.
Yeah.
Which is a sin, a crime too.
Yes, sir. You've lived out there, and you live pretty close to nature all your life. You kind of studied it too, haven't you?
Well, I tell you what I've done. My experiences on trips to Florida were for a purpose.
Yeah.
I have a portable tape recorder, and I have a parabola microphone, which is exactly the same thing as a headlight in reverse.
Yeah.
And I record birds that nobody can get anywhere about with that thing, because I've heard limpkins a half-mile away and got a perfect recording of them. Just beam that thing right on the sound.
Yeah.
And use the earphone to monitor with. And I have hundreds of groups of the Florida birds recorded and photographs of them, as well as our native birds. It's been a rewarding experience for me.
Well, now, when you were growing up and everything, I know then there was not near as much cleared land as there is now.
No.
Big forest pines.
Well, I go down by my old place down there where we grew up. There was beautiful woods on both sides of the roads, tremendous big yellow pines.
Yeah.
Now you can't see a pine anywhere, and the field is all in cultivation.
Yeah.
All been destroyed. And if that's any indication of what we're doing in this country, which I think it is, there's a day coming when we ain't gonna like it.
We're disrupting our ecology, aren't we?
Absolutely. Upsetting our ecology and destroying our natural resources. For what, I don't know.
The acceleration, I know we don't want to get too much probably into politics or this other, but I still feel like it needs to be touched on. The acceleration that we're doing it is what's so bad, isn't it? We
Sure
don't give ourselves enough time to adapt.
I don't think people are really have any idea what the outcome's going to be of what they're doing.
Now, back then, the branches and the creeks, they run clear about all the time, didn't they?
We had plenty of water in them too.
It stayed constant.
That's right.
It didn't either have high water or low water.
Well, we'd have a little freshet, we call it,
Oh,
in the spring of the year with a thundercloud or something like that come by in the summertime. But we didn't have a runoff we have now.
Well, now, what would you attribute this runoff? No trees?
No land that is absorptive due to the mat of humus that is deposited on it from the forest. In other words, you go into the woods, and it's a hard job to get water to run out of the woods. Because you've got 2 or 3 inches of decayed material there that absorbs an average rain and holds it and feeds it right to the roots of trees. And the same thing holds in the fields. If you got something there, if you haven't got it, well, of course, the only thing you can do is absorb what it can, the rest runs off.
Yeah. Well, our underground streams, if this water don't percolate down to them, in our underground water table we call it, it has no way of replenishing itself.
Not a bit. No way in the world.
And this is what we were talking a minute ago about using up our natural resources. And I guess the reason I'm wanting to ask you this is you have lived through a span of time that has seen what it was like when there was plenty of water. Nobody had to worry too much about getting water. Now, at this age in your life, you're seeing where people are beginning to fight over water.
Oh, yes. In other words, they're sabotaging projects and trying to steal water and everything else.
And your reading and everything too, I know you've read a lot of history. This should tell us something at what's going to happen down the road too, isn't it?
If
For
you just
future
listen to it, you got the answer. Because it's inevitable.
Yeah.
In other words, we're going to be a second China.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what the difficulties are in China?
Yeah. Overpopulation.
Too many people per square foot of soil.
Yeah.
And this is what we're coming to. It may take 100 years to do it. Unless some malady gets in here and stops the population rate growth, or we do something of that type. It's inevitable.
Now, when you were growing up down there, I doubt if there was many houses around that you could even see from where your house was it?
Not one.
But now, when you go down into that country, you cannot get out of sight of a house.
Look to see which one was mine.
But this is the little point I wanted to touch with you on account of you're living through this period of time from what we would call the basic horse and buggy days right on up to space. And you've seen the population jump from what? I believe the world population at about the time you were born is something like 1 billion people.
I couldn't
And now it's
substantiate
better than 4 billion.
Yeah.
So you've seen the population jump 4 times as much in just your lifespan.
Well, there's one thing that people don't seem to realize. You're going to have to feed those people.
Mm-hmm.
You got to clothe them.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to give them something to do.
Mm-hmm. Idle hands, they can get in trouble, can't
Well, you go back to the ancient history of those countries over there that have fallen.
Uh-huh.
That's what happened to them. Around the Red Sea and all that territory over there. But we don't seem to be able to see it here in real life.
It's kind of sad, isn't it?
Well,
In a way.
there's a reason behind it. I don't know what it is, but our Creator is allowing it.
Yeah.
And all the time He's screaming, watch where you're going.
Yeah. When you were a young man, when you cut your grain, what did you use to cut it with?
Scythe.
A scythe.
Yeah, what we call a scythe.
And then you went on to the cradle.
They call it a cradle.
Yeah.
It had a scythe blade on it,
Oh,
and
yeah.
fingers that would hold the grain.
Uh-huh.
And my job, of course, was always tying them on. I wasn't big enough to do the cutting.
The scythe could also, that blade could also be used as a mowing scythe, because that was. if I
No, you
remember
had
right-
a different shaft for a mowing scythe.
Oh yeah, but what about the blade? Could it be
It could be
interchangeable?
used
Yeah.
if it would fit the
But
other.
you had a different shaft to hold to for a mowing scythe.
And we had a different blade on it.
Was that your mowing machine?
No, that was.
I mean, to mow your meadows and stuff, to mow
That's what
hay
we
with?
used to mow anything
Yeah.
with. You could. Until McCormick come out with one that you could pull and mow.
Well, now, back then, what kind of a thrashing machine did you have when you had to use a cradle? Did you have a kind of a?
Well, there was, fortunately, at my time, there was a man down there that owned a threshing machine that he pulled around over the country with mules, horses, bring it to your place, and set it up. And once upon a time, before my time, they had a horse-drawn outfit that revolved to make the machine run. But when I came along, they had a little steam boiler and an engine on it, a little upright boiler, and they'd bring that thing in with about 4 horses pulling it, put it in place, and then set it up on its bottom.
Yeah.
Build a fire on it, get the water and the steam up, and put the belt on and run the chin with steam. But that was where we thrashed the grain.
Well, how did this man that owned this thrashing machine, how did he take his pay? In money or in toll?
Toll. Just a
Percentage of how much
Yeah.
he thrashed out.
So many bushels for how many bushels you threshed out.
If you had a bad crop, and he didn't make too much, did he?
He had to go with what he could get.
Then he would probably take it to a mill, I guess, and sell it, or
Well, it was ready then to go wherever grain goes.
Oh, yeah.
You know, feed, flour, mostly flour. People didn't feed any wheat that time.
well, now your corn. I remember cutting tops and pulling fodder. Did you ever do any of that?
Are you kidding? Many times. Yeah, I was fortunate, or unfortunate, tall enough to be able to cut the tops at the right place.
Yeah.
So that fell to me.
I remember my old-timey people would tell me that a milk cow that was fed on fodder, good fodder, gave better milk than if she had been fed on grass or something else like that, or it made the milk that much better. Now, whether it did or not, I have no idea.
I never heard that one.
But you can hear a lot of times chimney corner scripture, can't you?
Oh, yeah. But we had, most of the things were virgin. Virgin soil, virgin timber. And
Primitive farming compared to what we're doing now.
Primitive to what we're doing now.
Well, now, you didn't have a drill or anything to drill your oats in, did you?
Yes, my dad had a drill.
He did?
Yeah. I think he and his brother-in-law owned it together. My mother's brother.
Well, that was probably one of the first drills that ever come down in that country.
There was one or two that was in that area that I knew about.
Well, how did the other people that didn't have a drill,
Broadcast it.
Just broadcast it by hand?
Broadcast by hand.
Drag it in with a brush?
Yeah, just brush it in. Which isn't a bad way to do it if you've got somebody that can distribute it really nicely.
Well, now, did you work a lot of horses and mules at that time, or was oxen your primary?
We had horses. Had a horse, had a mare, and one of her foals that grew up to be another horse.
I know a lot of old people back then used oxen or steers, didn't they, to plow with?
They were using them then.
Yeah.
Many of them. And they're homemade wooden plows.
Single stocks?
Yeah, single stock wooden plows. They'd have to buy a plow point to go on it, you know.
Yeah. I guess that that point shaped, kind of had an odd long shape. They call it a bull tongue, didn't they? Looked like a big old bull tongue type of thing.
And we had to go get our horses shod, you know. You've heard of that.
Yeah, blacksmith.
Yeah, blacksmith.
But who was your blacksmith back then, do you remember?
Mr. Cook lived about 2 miles north of us. And I'll never forget an instance up there that made me respect the knowledge of a horse. We had an old mare named Fan, and she was just a plaything. The kids would play and do anything in the world they wanted to do with her. So Dad sent me up there to get her shod, new shoes put on. Well, the old man got through, and I started down the road away from his house, and the horse turned around and went back in spite of all I could do.
Yeah.
And I got up there and he said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Well, she came back without me having anything to do with it." He said, "Well, I know what's the matter." Said she got a nail, it's hurting the quick of her foot. So he went looking, finally found one, pulled it out. She went her own home.
She knew that blacksmith was...
She knew where it come from. She took it right back to it, in spite of all I could do.
Yeah. She'd been there before, hadn't she?
Well, she had that much intuition.
I mean, she'd been shot right smart before, too.
Probably.
How often did you remember how often you had to put shoes on? Once a year?
It depended on how much you used, maybe every 2 years or something like that.
According to how fast the foot grew and all of that.
And how fast you wear them out.
Yeah. Well, now this blacksmith, did he make his own shoes? If you remember, or?
I think they would buy a shoe that was formed to shape, but not didn't have the cleats on it.
Yeah.
And they would try to pick a shoe and fit it to it and bend the cleats. I think that thing just slipped down up there on the
no
cliff.
problem, as long as that light don't hurt your eye.
Don't bother me. But I'll never forget that horse going back to the shop.
Did you ever have to put shoes on for them in the wintertime for the ice and snow or anything?
No.
You just used one basic type of shoe?
All the time. Because we didn't have too much ice then.
Yeah.
And actually horses were very little use anyway in the dead of winter. 'Cause we get our wood in and get everything in that's possible to get in.
And you just kind of wintered in other
Winter
words.
in, that's right. There wasn't anywhere to go and there wasn't anywhere going.
Yeah. Another thought, tie in here a little bit. You was talking a while ago about this man in Elkin had a telephone at the shoe plant. Was that the old tannery they called
Yeah,
it?
that was the old tannery, up the creek.
Uh-huh.
The Elkin City water supply is there now.
Yeah.
Drinking water, filtration plant.
And that's where the tannery sits.
Yeah, that's where the tannery was.
I remember Mr. Danny telling me about people hauling tan bark from down in our way with oxen up there to the tannery.
Right.
And he would catch a ride with him when he would drive cattle from our country to Winston, or help a man that would come from Winston and buy cattle, and he'd help him drive them back, and then that man would give him a ticket on the train, and he'd come back to Elkin on the train, and then he'd catch him a ride on a ox cart going back down into our country to keep him having to walk and hauling tan bark.
Well, I tell you, people didn't mind walking those days.
Did you ever work any with a tan bark, or?
No, we had nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Did you ever go around the shoe factory up there much, or maybe just visit or something? Or
I used to go to the Elkin Shoe Company when they were working up on the creek up there.
Yeah.
Because I knew Mr. Smith and his son, and we went up there on some little problems here and there as I grew up. Nice people.
Yeah. Working with electricity or something like that?
Well, the lights is all they had, electric. The rest of it was all
run by the water.
Mechanical, the water wheel.
Yeah. They run the shoe tannery by the water wheel.
Yeah.
I was kind of wondering how they got the power, and I kind of figured that might be it, but I wasn't sure.
Well, the streams all over the country, you know, at that time were used for grinding food and meal and corn and flour and things of that type.
Well, that ties back in again with what we were talking about a while ago, the constant flow of water. They didn't have to worry about their supply, did they?
No,
they had a good steady supply of water. And they didn't pollute it and they didn't hurt it, and I don't guess, did they?
No, they didn't hurt a thing in the world, just stopped it for a few minutes.
Then moved it on, somebody else used it.
Somebody else used it again.
Yeah. I guess they had a lot of old burr mills too back then, didn't they?
Well, they're all granite burrs. And they'd have to take a mill apart once in a while and sharpen them. They had diverging bars on there that as the mill went around, you feed the grain in the middle, and it'd progress along out those little furrows, and each furrow, as it went out through there, the wheel that went over the top of it would catch it and pull it through, and crush it to a smaller size, you see.
Yeah.
And by the time it got around, the whole thing would go out around the edges, finished material.
They ground mostly, I guess, corn and wheat and that, didn't they?
Corn and wheat, just grains.
You talking about raising cotton too. Did you have a cotton gin close by, or where was your cotton gin? Or
Cotton gin was over at Jennings. You've probably heard of Jennings.
Oh yeah, that name keeps coming. Yeah, I know where Jennings is.
Rock Creek.
Yeah. All the old people I've been talking to.
Well, my grandmother was at Jennings, and she came from that area.
Yeah.
And we knew the fella. They were good people, and we carried our stuff over there. We'd sell the cotton to them if we wanted to sell it.
Yeah.
And we'd take things over there to be ground and looked after. And our Campbell's mill was strictly a grist mill. And that was on the Big Hunting Creek, just below where we lived.
Yeah.
We wanted a little bit of corn meal or something like that, we'd go down there, let them do it. But if it went for flour, why, we'd go to Jennings.
Yeah, that old Big Hunting Creek, it had a lot of mills all up and down through there.
Sure did.
Just full of mills, and I don't think there's but one mill on that right now. And that's Lenny's mill back up in Alexander County that's running on that, is it?
I don't know of one at all. I'm not sure.
I believe Eagle Mill down in there close to 21 was about the last, and it.
That's the last one I knew about.
Yeah, or Barnett's Mill or somewhere down there.
Barnard's Mill.
Yeah, Barnard's Mill. Way on down the creek.
Buckshoals, and they had one there at Zion.
Yeah.
Campbell's Mill.
Yeah.
Of course, now Buckshoals was on Little Hunting Creek.
Yeah, it was over on Little Hunting Creek.
Little Hunting Creek, yeah.
Well, anyway, it don't matter, but I was trying to think, way back up on the headwaters of Little Hunting Creek, it seems like there's another mill up there, Mayberry's Mill.
Oh, yeah.
It might be running right now.
It was an overshot wheel
Yeah.
thing. The others are homemade turbines.
Homemade turbine, where they
Yeah.
chopped it out and chopped their turbines out.
Well, they built a circular box, you see what I'm,
Uh-huh.
if you call it a box.
Yeah.
And the water came in on a tangent, you see, and the blades were in there, and they'd go around the wheel and go on out the bottom. It was a very inefficient way to do it, but they had enough water, they didn't mind wasting it.
Yeah. It's coming down the creek anyway,
That's right.
wasn't it? But I guess a lot of these mills, it was what is called an undershot. They probably had to be built that way because there wasn't enough dams high enough to get them to be an overshot, wasn't it?
Well,
Or what's the difference?
if you're going to use an undershot mill, you'd have to have a wastable surplus of water because they're very inefficient.
Uh-huh.
And the wheel was driven by impact
Uh-huh.
rather than by weight.
Uh-huh.
Now the overshots, the power derived from the weight of that water falling
Uh-huh.
at the radius at which it was from the axle itself, you see.
Oh,
That's,
yeah.
that's what determined the power.
Well, I didn't know. I just thought maybe it might have been determined to where how high they could get the dam built or not, but
No, if you had plenty of water, you could do an overshot.
I'm learning something every day.
Of course, a horsepower is so many thousand pounds of weight that moves so far in such a length of time. That's a horsepower.
Yeah.
I think it's 33,000 pounds lifted 1 foot in 1 minute as a horsepower.
Yeah.
And the same way it goes for 33,000 pounds going down, it will deliver a
Yeah.
horsepower.
Did you ever travel any out west?
The only traveling I did out west was after I went to the Chathams, and I was riding second seats on an airplane. In other words, co-pilot.
Yeah.
And we traveled around through many of those places out there, except for one motorcycle trip.
You rode a motorcycle?
Yeah, I tell you, 1927, radio had just been built, and
Yeah.
Atwater, Kansas built a factory up in Pennsylvania. And I was selling that radio, so we got an invitation to come to the factory.
Yeah.
And I had a boy working for me that had a Harley Davidson motorcycle. And I was getting ready to go, and he said, Walt, said, how about let me go with him and take my bike? I said, it's up to you if you think you can do it. We drove that thing to Philadelphia. Got through with the meeting up there and got ready to come home. And he says, how about I'd like to go visit my aunt on the way back. I said, where she lives? He says, Iowa.
Iowa.
Iowa. So we left Philadelphia, went out through Pittsburgh, out
Yeah.
through Ohio.
Yeah.
And I tell a joke about him. We were going along out through northern Indiana, and there wasn't a paved road in the world then. They were all macadam, you see.
Yeah.
When they get a little bumpy, where they go along and scrape the stuff off the side and then bring it back.
Yeah.
And it'd leave a little berm up in the middle. And he wouldn't drive